first of all, thanks a lot for being here.
It's a big pleasure. I always come back to Brazil I'm always excited when I come here.
For this time, it's a short trip. You're a very, very busy person. How does a person manage 70 companies and companies like this one that we're going to talk about in a bit?
So I've been founding with money 70 companies, but I wasn't managing it. I actually usually focus on one, and that's what I did with my incubator. I was actually very keen into innovation in Italy. For a certain period of my time, I was representing 20% of the Italian innovation market. Not because I'm cool, because Italian innovation market doesn't exist. But in reality, I'm really monofocused. I try to focus on one company. And Hyperloop, for me, it was a big concretization of every experience I've done in the past. It was media, engineering, science, entrepreneurship, finance. This came to an amazing conclusion in the Hyperloop. I always say that I don't see myself doing anything else in the future. It's really absorbing all my energy. But even if I was all in when I started this company, I am still convinced that this is the biggest and most exciting project that I have ever participated in my life. So it's meaningful to actually being able to achieve what we achieved in only 5 years. And we're now in construction of the first full-scale Hyperloop. And this is a dream come true.
Where do we stand right now after these 5 years?
So you know that we've been announcing several deals, 11 deals around the world. But in the last 6 months, everything happened. After feasibility studies and passing from a phase of proving that the technology and all our science was correct, now we went in a phase where we are implementing it. And that's the exciting phase. We have 3 projects that we start commercialization. One is Ukraine, was in China, but the most important one is UAE. UAE, we just announced last week the start of the construction of the project. It means the construction phase passed in different phases. Now we are in detailed design, where we are actually doing all the master planning in the area of the 10 kilometers area that we are building the first one. It means that the implementation will start in 2019 and will continue until the inauguration of the line that will happen in October 2020 for the Expo of the Dubai.
In October 2020.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
First full-scale commercial line active in Abu Dhabi.
That's really nice. I understand that the concept, like the science behind it, is kind of like old, like the theoretically.
Yeah.
But execution and projects have moved really fast over the last 5 years and a little bit more than that. There's a big fuss about Elon Musk like presenting the idea, but then other companies took the execution part specifically more than. How did you guys get this old theory, not old, but it was there, and turned it into execution and now are delivering it?
So I think that the difference between us and anyone else has tried to actually create an Hyperloop. We were the first one. After Elon said he was not going to do it, we were the first crazy people that actually embraced the idea and brought it to life. But we did it in a complete new way. Instead of having the arrogance to think that we have had all the solution, we said, we don't have all the solution, but out there, somewhere in the planet, there are people that knows how to actually bring this amazing vision to execution. And we did a big call to action. The result is almost magic. We have now 900 people working from 42 countries, contributing their time, their effort, their assets, and their money to actually create the first Hyperloop. And now it's incredible because it became the biggest crowdsourcing project in the planet. We give them stock option of the company in exchange of work. And there's never been attempted in such a large scale. Now we have been published by Harvard in a Harvard business case, and they teach our model at Harvard actually as a template to solve all the problem of humanity. So I'm very happy that we started a revolution that is not only how to build an Hyperloop, but how to build the next generation of companies that can solve all the problems of humanity.
I think that template would be useful for all types of mobility projects like Hyperloop and
Yes.
many other complex as well.
Absolutely, we have the technology to solve our problems. We have technology to solve food, housing, energy, mobility. The patents, the technology that we have available right now at the tip of a finger is unprecedented. The only problem that we have is we are too divided, and this is the first project that actually clears all the barriers, breaks all the walls, and puts humanity together to solve one of the biggest problems, that is transportation. I think this is bigger than a Hyperloop. It's a new generation of companies that can change everything.
I think so too. How does the Hyperloop compare to the solutions we have nowadays regarding freight transportation, like trucks, and regarding people transportation, such as planes or even cars for long distances, like cost-wise in the installation part and in the operational part?
Transportation sucks. It's broken. I don't want to stress the concept. You just go out, take a car, and embrace this concept that we developed in the beginning of the century, the automobile. And then we ended up creating the auto immobile because it stays steady inside the garage for 85% of the time. And we built our cities around this. That doesn't scale, that pollutes, that is usually used by one person and every family has 2-3 cars, is a nonsense. And it's consuming all our resources. And the bad news is that if you look at all the rest of the industries, it's all broken. It's all based on subsidies. We are constantly need finance because the model that we created behind this technology never recouped the investments. So we condemn every state to put enormous amount of money in infrastructure that are completely inefficient. Now, if you look at the cost, the comparison is almost ridiculous. We cost 1/4 of the high-speed rail. But the real question is not how much does it cost. Yes, 25%. In some cases, 1/10. But the real question is not how much does it cost. The real question is how long does it take to recoup the investment? And this is the biggest question where everybody else fails. There's no one that makes money in the transportation industry. If you look at rails, airplanes, undergrounds, we're all subsidizing. Why? Because it's all based on inefficiency. The Hyperloop has the amazing opportunity to have a cheap way to build it, but also a tenth of the cost to maintain it. And that means that we can recoup the investment in 8 to 15 years, depending on where we're building it. If we're building in India, for example, this can go down to 4 or 5 years on the recoupment of the investment. This is an incredible revolution because basing the system on efficiency means that we are consuming a tiny fraction of the energy to maintain the system. We are optimizing the system to be built with new materials that are more efficient, lighter, and we can build it faster with a minimal impact. And because of the physics around the Hyperloop, we are completely silent. We don't disrupt the land where we build it because we build on pylon. And the value of the land increase instead of diminish. So it's not only a better technology to build, but it's also bringing much more value to the government that actually built the Hyperloop. So the selling proposition is uncomparable with anything else. If you're talking about freight, for example, it's not only the cost, but the benefit of having a completely sustainable solution that can transform completely the way we transport goods in a way that we can do just in time, not inside the city, but across thousands of kilometers of distance. And this will change completely the scenarios. We can build offshore platforms that doesn't need ports anymore. We're using the best places on the planet to actually create ugly and very unfriendly.
Unfriendly is a friendly word.
Yeah, I don't want to be more rude than that. That actually destroys part of the complete ecosystem of the area we built it to actually do what? To actually do functions that we can easily automatize because we can build offshore platforms that unload our ships. And then thanks to a submarine Hyperloop, we can ship the freights directly to destination without passing to ports. So the selling proposition of an Hyperloop is not only enormously more efficient, but it brings to the market a revolution in transportation. And that's why I'm so excited about it.
What's the optimal length of an Hyperloop project? Like, where does it get better than other?
So a lot of people doesn't realize that the Hyperloop is not only for long distances, you know. We have module of Hyperloop that have 10 kilometers length that then we can replicate forever, basically. But we have also a slower version of the Hyperloop that can be used to actually connect inside cities. And usually this kind of system are built underground inside the city. So modulating the routes inside and outside the city, you can create an integrated network that can speed up outside the city and it can slow down inside the city. So it's the perfect solution for the end-to-end delivery of people and goods. You only need to fix the last mile, and we're already working on this topic. So the reality of the fact that the Hyperloop is not only about speed, it's about how can we build a transportation system that is efficient.
There are other companies building Hyperloop projects. How do you relate to each other? Like, is research done, is shared, or are there like big research groups but they're not connected?
So there are several other projects that came in the market 1 year and a half after us. We were the first and the biggest effort. We own the brand Hyperloop in 56 countries. But we're very happy that we created what is now a movement. It's not a company anymore. And other effort means other point of views, other ways to do things, and an enrichment of this amazing technology. I don't foresee in the future one company. I will strongly be worried if we give this technology to one company only. So I foster and really push to have other companies coming and joining this amazing opportunity. Actually, there are a couple of examples, and I think because we came first, we have a technology advantage, and we are the only one focusing on passenger and freight. The others, I've seen several examples of small scale, even if they call it full scale, I haven't seen any real full scale. The only full scale that is in construction is our tube in Toulouse and our project in Abu Dhabi. But I foresee in the future several companies, and I welcome it. Until now, we're trying now to put them under an umbrella. There's a ARP association, that is an industry association that born in America, and now we're trying to expand it worldwide. It doesn't involve yet all the companies involved. There are some companies that think that this is a war and for some reason they want to run alone. They will soon realize that this is not a war, that is a cooperation environment. Still competing, we can actually decide not to repeat the mistakes of the rails or other industries. I think we can, there's space actually to have standards on tube size and other things that and also regulation, for example. But I'm sure this will very soon converge into a global effort, and I really welcome that.
That's nice. 2 more questions before we wrap it up. After evaluating 100 countries, even more than that, you chose Brazil for a research center.
Yep.
Why Brazil and why Minas Gerais? Could you comment a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Brazil won a global tender to have the first R&D center for logistics. And Brazil won. And the beauty of it is that the multi-criteria matrix that we designed to actually have this R&D center assigned, in almost all of the boxes, Brazil scored among the first 5 in terms of innovation, in terms of skilled engineering, in terms of ecosystem, in terms of the possibility to leapfrog. Unfortunately, the countries that were not investing too much in infrastructure were the one more advantaged to actually win the tender, because you don't have the expenses of the legacy of actually reconverting obsolete systems. You haven't invested in high-speed rail, you haven't invested in a lot of infrastructure that Europe, for example, invested. So a lot of these advanced countries were actually not favorite because they have to reconvert everything, and they invested billions of dollars in this kind of technology. They are obsolete, and as I told you, they are very inefficient. Brazil starts with an amazing possibility. It has resources, it has it's a very rich environment of skilled engineering, and a need for a faster, more sustainable and efficient way to move people and cargo. And that was the criteria where Brazil not only scored the first one, but also put together a very credible project that was then presented to us in a very compelling way. It was bipartisan. So that was one of the few countries in the world that we've had a bipartisan approach to actually have this R&D center. So it guaranteed us that whatever was the results of the election, we were able to continue the project. I was very fascinated about this, and I have to compliment to your politician for once on being so far-seeing in the future to actually put aside all the differences and actually vote this unanimously.
What can we expect of this research center and of Hyperloop projects in Brazil for the next years?
So what to expect is very promising, because Brazil will now be the epicenter of a giant revolution that we will be developing. It's a very challenging program. It's a 15 years innovation program that we have developed, and we'll be seeing Brazil as the epicenter of this. It means investments, it means resources, it means jobs, and it means also talents that we can bring by hand thanks to the research center that Senai is an example, but there's several other partners that are joining now the consortium. To actually, it involves universities, and involves R&D centers, and involves also private companies that we are lining up. My invitation is for your viewers is actually, don't be afraid to try to actually partner with us. You know, there are not sizes that we look at technology. Even small startups can try to apply to our partnership program. And the reason that we are here in Brazil is actually to foster this kind of opportunities. So we are now lining up a stellar amount of partners, and everyone would be accepted to actually pass the selection phase. So please, if you're an entrepreneur, a scientist, or a company that does innovation, apply to join our partnership program, because it is a concrete chance to design the passenger and the freight of the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.